If you're over 70, you've earned the right to live lighter, wiser, and more joyfully. But the truth is many don't. Why? Because they carry things that no longer belong in this chapter of their lives. At this age, happiness isn't about what you collect. It's about what you release. What you're about to hear isn't meant to comfort you. It's not soft advice wrapped in feel-good words. It's a reality check, and more importantly, it's a way forward. Because if you stay with this message until the very end, you'll hear one powerful mindset shift, one that can instantly transform how you experience joy no matter how old you are. And that final truth, it's the one no one dares to say out loud, but everyone silently needs to hear. Let's start with this. Remove regret. Regret is one of the heaviest burdens a person can carry. Not because it weakens the body, but because it torments the mind. It's not pain that sits in your muscles. It's pain that lives in your memory. And the longer you live, the more space regret tries to take. You think about the words you never spoke, the chances you didn't take, the time you never gave. You replay moments, conversations, decisions, missed opportunities until suddenly your present isn't yours anymore. You've handed it over to a past that cannot be rewritten. Here's the truth that most people won't say. You cannot fix yesterday. It's gone, and no amount of mental replays will bring it back. Regret is like a film stuck on loop, and every time you press play, it drains your spirit just a little more. It tightens your chest. It clouds your thoughts. It binds you to a place you've long outgrown. And the longer you dwell there, the harder it becomes to breathe. In the moment you're standing in now, you're not aging poorly. You're just carrying a weight you were never meant to bear forever. We all have things we wish we could have done differently. That's human. It's actually a sign that you've grown, but regret only becomes toxic when you refuse to set it down. It tricks you into believing your past defines you, that one misstep erases all the good you've done, that your worst moment is your most authentic self. But that's a lie. You are not your past. You are what you choose to become after it. You replay arguments that led nowhere. You remember the conversations where you got the last word, but lost the connection. And slowly you begin to realize being factually correct isn't the same as being spiritually aligned. Especially after 70, you start to uncover a wisdom many never reach. Silence is not weakness. It is strength in its most graceful form. It takes courage to hold your tongue when someone says something wrong. Not because you agree, but because you know deep down the correction would cost more than it's worth. It would create friction where there could be flow. It would spark defensiveness where openness could have grown, and worst of all, it would feed your ego, not your peace. Letting go of the need to be right doesn't mean you no longer care about truth. It means you've matured enough to value peace over performance. You've come to understand. Most people don't remember what you said. They remember how they felt in your presence. Were they judged or were they heard? Were they lectured or were they welcomed? Every time you resist the urge to correct someone, you create space for the relationship to breathe, for the conversation to unfold, for respect to deepen, not because you agreed, but because you chose connection over control. And here's the powerful irony. The less you try to be right, the more open you become. You start learning again, you hear new ideas, you become someone people feel safe around. They know they can speak without fear of being shut down, and because of that they listen to you not because you're louder, but because you're lighter. There's a quiet dignity in letting others have their viewpoint. Even when it's flawed, even when it doesn't match your truth, you recognize that everyone sees life through their own lens, shaped by their pain, their history, their season of life. And sometimes people don't need correction, they need compassion. They don't need you to win the debate. They need you to listen with patience, to nod with kindness, to let the moment pass untangled by tension. Yes, this is hard, especially when you know you're right, when someone spreads misinformation, when someone speaks carelessly. But every time you choose stillness over self-righteousness, every time you pause instead of pounce, you build inner strength. You become the grounded presence in the room, not because you dominate, but because you radiate grace. That doesn't mean you stay silent in the face of injustice. There's a difference between letting go of ego and abandoning your values. Speak when it truly matters. But don't waste your breath where it doesn't. Pick your battles with the wisdom of someone who's lived long enough to know most arguments solve nothing. Most debates don't lead to truth, they lead to distance. And at this stage of life, connection matters far more than correction. So when someone says something you disagree with, ask yourself, is this worth it? Will this strengthen our bond? Will this elevate the moment? Or am I just trying to win? More often than not, the strongest choice is to simply listen, nod, smile, and let it pass like a breeze, and in doing so, you protect your energy. You walk away with peace in your chest, not adrenaline from another emotional sparring match. This is especially true with family, with younger generations, with old friends who think differently now. Let them speak. Let them grow. Let them be wrong if they must. Your silence doesn't mean defeat, it means maturity. It means you've climbed enough mountains to know not every summit is worth the climb. You don't need to win every debate. You don't need to fix every flaw. You don't need to be the smartest voice in the room. You just need to be the calmest, because calm speaks louder than correctness. And presence, true, loving, peaceful presence, speaks louder than pride. Asterisk. Remove clutter, physical and mental clutter doesn't always look like a mess. Sometimes it's folded neatly in drawers, stacked in boxes in the garage, hung in closets with tags still attached. Other times it's invisible, tucked deep within your mind, as worry, as regret, as mental noise. But whether it's in your home or in your head, clutter drains you. It takes up space that your soul desperately needs to breathe. And as you grow older, the cost of holding on to too much in your environment and in your mind becomes heavier than you ever expected. Let's start with the physical walk through your home. Notice what surrounds you: the shelves, the drawers, the piles of paper waiting for attention, old tools you never use, clothes that no longer fit, manuals for appliances you don't even own anymore, trinkets kept just in case. At first, it seems harmless, but every item is a delayed decision, a tiny pocket of unresolved energy. And over time, those pockets add up. Each time you walk past that pile or open that overstuffed drawer, your brain registers it. Even if you don't, it feels the weight of unfinished business. It senses the tension of things kept out of fear, guilt, or habit instead of usefulness or joy. Clearing your space isn't about chasing minimalism because it's trendy. It's about liberation, because every object you release creates room to think, to breathe, to simply be. And this becomes more essential with age. Why? Because decision fatigue is real, because clarity of mind is gold. When your space is cluttered, your thoughts will be too, but when your home is clean, calm, and intentional, your mind follows. Your nervous system relaxes, your body begins to feel less tense, at ease within its own space, because the outer always mirrors the inner. But clutter doesn't just live in your house, it lives in your head too. Old conversations that still sting. Mistakes you continue to punish yourself for, worries about things that may never happen. Grudges you've carried so long they've become part of your posture. These aren't just harmless mental habits. They are energetic anchors. They tug your attention away from the present. They trap you in loops where growth cannot reach you. You feel drained, distracted, foggy, not because of age, but because your mind is overcrowded. Mental clutter is subtle. It hides behind busyness. It wears the disguise of being prepared or just cautious, but beneath it all there's usually fear. Fear of change, fear of forgetting, fear of letting go. Even the thought of throwing away an old letter or clearing out a drawer filled with memories can feel like erasing your past. But you're not erasing, you're releasing. You're choosing to live with what lifts you, not what lingers like weight. So how do you begin? Start small. One drawer, one box, one outdated belief. Ask yourself, do I still need this? Do I still want this? Or have I just gotten used to having it around? Then take a breath and let it go. Feel the freedom in that act. Feel the space it creates, not just in your closet, but in your spirit, because every item you release, every mental loop you interrupt, is a message to your mind. We are no longer trapped in the past. We are here now. We are free. Simplicity isn't emptiness. It's intentionality. It means having less so that you can feel more, so that your days aren't spent managing things but living. So your energy isn't tied up in worry or dust but directed toward clarity, creativity, connection. This isn't about a tidy house. It's about a clear life, a life with space for new thoughts, new people, new feelings, even in your later years. Because you're never too old to make space for something better. Let's be honest, there's a reason we cling to clutter. Sometimes it gives us identity, a timeline of who we once were, a safety net. But your identity doesn't live in a box of old clothes or in broken furniture. It lives in how you show up now in your presence, in the energy you bring to a moment, in the calm you radiate when your surroundings reflect peace. You don't need to throw everything away, but you do need to ask, am I willing to trade my peace for this thing? Is the guilt of keeping it worth the stress of never feeling free? Is the story it holds worth more than the space it occupies? The less you carry, the lighter you become physically, mentally, emotionally. And that lightness, it's not just relief, it's power, it's momentum. It's the sensation of being in control of your life again, not buried beneath it. You begin to feel capable, focused, more alive. Because your attention isn't being drained by what's piled up, it's finally yours again. So take the time, drawer by drawer, thought by thought, grudge by grudge. Clear what no longer serves you. Keep what nourishes your soul, and remember, the more space you create, the more room you give life to enter again. Remove comparison. At a certain age, something unexpected begins to happen. You've lived through 7 decades, maybe more. You've raised families, built careers, buried loved ones, reinforced yourself from the inside out again. And again you've won, you've lost, you've healed, you've endured. You've watched the world shift beneath your feet, and yet somewhere inside a quiet voice still whispers, look at what they're doing. Should I be doing more? This is the trap of comparison. And yes, it still sneaks in at 70, at 80, even when you logically know better. It appears as you scroll through photos of old friends traveling. It shows up when someone mentions upgrading their retirement home. It creeps in when you hear how someone's grandkids visit every weekend. It rarely feels like envy. It feels like doubt, a subtle question rising in the background. Am I falling behind? But the truth is, after 70, there's no such thing as behind. There's no scoreboard, no finish line, no scale to measure how well you're aging. Your life is not a competition. It's not a comparison chart. It's a sacred path walked only by you. And the more you measure your story against someone else's timeline, the more disconnected you become from your own meaning. What others do with their age, their choices, their lifestyle, their energy has nothing to do with what you are meant to do with yours. They have their own body, their own pain, their own relationships, health, and history. You are not standing in the same moment. You're not living the same story. Trying to match their steps will only throw you off balance. Comparison also steals joy, not because your life is lacking, but because your focus is misaligned. You stop seeing what is working. You stop appreciating your small rituals, your quiet mornings, your earned wisdom, your familiar comforts. You begin chasing a version of success that was never meant for you, and that's when peace begins to slip away. But here's the part comparison can't touch unless you let it. Your purpose, your presence, your moment. You don't need to travel the world to feel alive. You don't need a younger body to move with grace. You don't need applause to know you're worth you. Only need to return to yourself, because everything that matters lives there, in your rhythm, in your values, in your voice. So how do you remove comparison? You start by noticing when it sneaks in. Does it show up when you hear someone else's story? When you scroll through their highlight reel, when you're exhausted and they seem energized, become aware of the pattern. Not to shame yourself, but to gently interrupt it, to remind yourself calmly and firmly, that's their life. This is mine, and this life matters. Then you take inventory of what you've endured, what you've built, what you've released, what you've chosen to keep despite the cost. Because no one, not a soul, sees the full weight of your journey, but you so don't discount it just because someone else's moment appears shinier. You've walked through more than most people will ever know. Don't let a passing glance at someone else's chapter make you question the power of your own book, and then you turn inward. You stop measuring yourself by what others are doing, and instead you ask, what do I need today to feel grounded? What brings me peace? What brings me joy? What makes me proud not in comparison but in truth? Maybe it's a quiet walk. Maybe it's making someone laugh, finishing a book, or guiding someone younger who needs your wisdom. These are the victories that don't go viral, but they change you deeply from the inside out, because the truth is aging isn't about becoming someone else. It's about becoming more yourself, more honest, more at ease, more free from the noise of comparison that haunted your earlier years. At this stage, the goal isn't to match anyone, it's to become whole, to live with clarity, to focus on what truly matters. To stop trading your peace for illusions that were never meant for you. You are not late, you are not behind, you are not too old to begin something meaningful. You are not irrelevant in a world moving too fast, you're here breathing present, aware. And that means there is still something in you the world needs to witness. You don't have to compare. You don't have to measure yourself against younger bodies, louder voices, or faster timelines. That's not your lane. That's not your truth. You were never here to keep pace. You were here to keep presence, to live on your terms, in your time, in your way. And the moment you stop measuring, you start thriving. But here's what happens to many people somewhere along the way: they begin to hide their brilliance. Not because it's gone, but because the world convinced them that age makes you invisible. That youth is all that matters, that once you hit a certain number your value begins to fade. But that's the lie. That's the great theft of modern life, because right now within you are gifts forged from decades of living, losing, loving, learning, rebuilding. These are not ideas. They are lived truths. In this world, it doesn't need another trend, it needs your truth. But here's the thing about unused gifts: they don't disappear quietly. They rust, they ache, they stir. They make you restless in your silence, and maybe you felt it. That gentle but persistent pull in your chest when you sit still too long, that whisper that says, I still have more to give, that nudge that never quite fades no matter how many times you tell yourself it's too late. It's not too late, it never was. That voice isn't a warning, it's an invitation. You still have time, not for everything, but for what matters. Maybe it's planting that little garden you've always dreamed of. Maybe it's writing the story that's been hiding in your soul. Maybe it's passing your hard one, wisdom, to someone who desperately needs it. You still have time to give the world something only you can give, because no one else has lived your life. No one else has walked your path, carried your burdens, celebrated your wins, or survived your losses exactly the way you have. That makes you invaluable, right? Now somewhere in your family, your community, or across the world, someone is facing a battle you've already overcome. They're searching for light. And that light might be you, your story, your wisdom, your presence. Even a conversation you think is meaningless could become a lifeline to someone else, but they'll never receive it if you keep it locked inside. So why stay silent? Why let the fear of being imperfect silence something that could be powerful? You've already lived through storms that others couldn't even fathom. You've overcome mountains that many are just beginning to climb. Your age is not a weakness. Your age is not a weakness, it's your edge. Don't let your gifts gather dust. Don't let years of growth go unspoken. Speak, write, share, teach, mentor, fix something with your hands. Tell someone what you've learned even if they don't ask, because when you begin to give again from your soul, not your ego, you come alive, your energy lifts your shoulders. Straighten, your smile deepens, and something within you stirs you. Remember who you are, and never forget this. Sometimes the smallest act creates the biggest ripple, a story shared in passing, a recipe told from memory, a smile offered soft but backed by decades of wisdom. That's impact. That's legacy. Legacy isn't what you leave behind when you die. It's what you give away while you're still alive. So look at your life, really look. Look at the weight you've been carrying, weight that no longer belongs to you. Some relationships you've simply outgrown, some people they drain you. Even if you've known them for years, even if they've always been part of your world, it doesn't make you heartless to walk away. It makes you wise. Protect your peace. Love should never require sacrificing your soul. If someone's presence shrinks you, makes you anxious, makes you constantly walk on eggshells, let that be a boundary, not a badge of endurance. And while we're here, let go of the fear of aging, your wrinkles. They're not flaws. They are stories etched into your skin like sacred verses. Your slower steps, not signs of weakness, they are proof you've walked long and far. The world will tell you aging is a decline, but the truth is aging is awakening. You're not running out of time. You're running out of reasons to waste it. You are not too late. You are not too far gone. You are not too old to heal, to grow, to change your diet, to walk more, to try something new, because as long as you're breathing, as long as your heart is still beating, you are still capable of shifting, of creating, of becoming.